we have a very incredible guest. We have Johnathan Hammond. Johnathan is a Maui-based author, spiritual teacher, energy healer, shamanic practitioner. He's a graduate of Harvard University and the University of Michigan. Let's go Wolverines. He has studied shamanism, meditation, energy healing, and the chakras with some of the most prominent teachers and healers in North and South America, as well as apprenticeships with shamans of Brazil, Bali, Nicaragua, Mexico, and Hawaii. He has this amazing new book, The Shamanic Mind, and I've gotten a chance to read from it, the Shaman's Mind, sorry about that. I've gotten a chance to read from it. It's got some amazing information about kuna practices, and so I was excited to get a chance to talk to Johnathan. Welcome to the Reality Revolution, Johnathan.
It's so great to be here. Aloha to you and to everyone. Really nice to be here.
Aloha. So, from that background, you have a ton of background. It's very unusual for people to graduate from Harvard and then become shamans that are focused on Reiki. So, you talk a little bit about your story in your book, The Shaman's Mind, but please share your background, your origin story to everyone that's listening.
Yeah, well, I was as a child, I was an incredible mimic, and my parents thought actor, because it certainly seemed like that, and so I sort of was on that path for about the first 35 years of my life, but I was never a fame-driven actor. It was more about the artistry, and what I found is, if you think of acting is about reading a script and going, what kind of person would say that, and then that emerging from the inside. So it's a very empathic attunement. And what I found in pursuing acting, I was successful. I was a theater actor in New York. Was that I kept having this feeling of, I'd always been spiritual. I'd always had private clients, which was kind of in the closet, because I had this outward persona that wasn't that. But I was always doing healing work from the time I was in my mid-20s. And then it just started becoming bigger and taking up more space. And then I found myself getting these great acting jobs and thinking to myself, I don't like this. I don't want to be here. I can't wait for it to be over so I can go back to my healing work. And so there was a certain moment where, after, hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans and all of that, but there was a moment where it was, all the signs were saying, and some of them I wrote about in my book, some of them happened here on Maui, that it was time to really make a shift, and a shift in my life, and become a professionally spiritual person, which is what I certainly became. And it was, when you find the right life and you actually align with what your soul is wanting for you, a lot of yeses appeared. And there was a lot of yeses in my life, and within 3 or 4 years I was teaching at the Omega Institute and had a full, very busy practice in New York City, which has now been transferred here, and it's international. I see people from all over the world, and I don't miss acting at all, and in some ways I feel like it's much of the same skill set. I don't mean that I'm putting something on. I mean more that empathic attunement that I had in my artistry, I'm using now. And even the reason why I called my book The Shaman's Mind was because that empathic attunement, I'm not a shaman. I don't think of myself that way. I don't need that mantle. That's not interesting to me. I don't care. But the idea that I can empathically attune with how the shamans think, how the people in indigenous cultures who are in rapport with nature, direct, interdependent, symbiotic relationship with nature, I do have a sense of how they think, and because I'm empathically attuned to them, and so that mind is available to me. So I'm a garden variety natural healer. That's what I am. It's just that it's all informed by the shamanic perspective.
You share a very interesting story at the beginning of your book about when you visit Haleakala, the crater, volcanic crater. Please share that story. That seemed to be pretty poignant and significant, a part of your story as why you're in Maui now and where you had this huge awakening.
Well, I had been tortured for a while about making this change, and my spirit was really calling me to do something else. I had training in Hawaiian shamanism at that point. I did training in lots of different shamanism and worked with shamans in, 4 different continents or something. And there was a moment where I was on vacation here, and I used to here a lot because it was a tax write-off to come to Maui when you're writing a book on Hawaiian shamanism, so I came here a lot. And I was on the volcano, the Haleakala, which is now a dormant volcano. And it's very peaceful up there. It's a sense that whatever Pele's anger is, it's not here anymore. She's done her work here and she's moved on. And I had a peak spiritual experience. And just to name, when we have peak spiritual experiences, they tend to be outside. They tend to be in ecology. And it was just a sense of I was sitting up looking at a vista, and clouds came over me, and there was a kind of a white out, and I was some force like a train came at me in such a way that I had to kind of fall backward onto the rocks. And lava rocks are sharp, and yet it was the most comfortable laying back on these rocks, like I was in this reclining chair. It was scary though, and there was a sense of I knew that it knew that I knew that it knew. One of those experiences that I was just with it. And the message was you have to change your life, that you have to make a change. And then I took pictures of myself with my cell phone just because I wanted to remember the experience, not to share with anyone. And walked back up the volcano and thought I'm gonna change my life, and I really did. About a week later, called my agent, said I'm done. I'm set up shop, with an office in New York, etc. And then when I got home and I looked at the pictures, there was my spirit animal is a turtle, and the turtles have been showing up forever in my life, a whole bunch of different ways and meanings. And in the rock, I actually posted the picture in my book because it was so unmistakable. There is a sculpture in the lava of a turtle looking literally at my head, right at me when I was having this experience. And it was so crazy. So I asked my publisher, I said, I know this is just a picture from my iPhone, but you have to publish it because it's because when I got home, it was this real this moment of full circle and all that. And turtle, more than anything else, is about the earth. It's about the earth mother. It's about the turtle has 28 little segments, and then 13 little segments representing the 28 days of each month, and the 13 segments of the moon. And I mean, it's very connected to earth wisdom. And so that really, there are a lot of other experiences. I think we've all had these kind of peak experiences, but that one was I'm not going to turn back. I have to follow this.
Yeah, those moments are so amazing and astounding, and it's I love to hear when other people share theirs, because what can you do after you have that experience? You got to change everything, and so you talk about Huna and some of the older indigenous Hawaiian magic systems in your book. First of all, I'm wondering, have you ever read Max Freedom Long? We've been studying that in our group, and that was like, I think it might have been 100 years ago. This school teacher shows up in Hawaii, and he starts talking to the locals, and they have these amazing practices that he's doing where they're healing with their hands. People are seeing spirit animals. People are coming back from the dead is the things that he would talk about. The incorporating a relationship with the higher self and the low self, that sort of dichotomy. And so I've learned a lot from it, but I got the feeling we were just getting the basics, and there's this rich culture and diversity of knowledge. So I'm excited to hear what you've picked up on it from your learning, and really you've moved to Maui, right? And so, share with me some of what you've learned in that experience. This one thing people don't know about Hawaii in general is that Hawaii was an advanced technological society. They had trains before everybody else. They had a democratic system. It's a real shame what happened to Hawaii. They were this amazing society that was advanced. They were not like
tons of newspapers.
Right. Everybody could read. They had a great educational system. The healthcare system was amazing. It's just like a tragedy. What happened, a lot has been lost. So it's important, even for us white people that show up, to bring this knowledge to everyone else, because so much has been lost.
Well, there are two things that about that. One is it's not just Hawaii. There's something called traditional ecological knowledge, TEK, and that is essentially the spiritual and lived and relational context that indigenous cultures have with their land. They actually know something about. They are in conversation with their land. They know what it needs. They know its personality. They know what it doesn't need. And they are attuned to the spiritual dimension behind that land, and when Westerners came and just forgot, we didn't even acknowledge that knowledge, and it is knowledge. It is actual knowledge. It's not knowledge that is necessarily scientifically based, but it is knowledge. And that was lost in so many cultures. When the Lahaina fires happened here, the next day, this happened about 20 miles away from me. The next day, the whole town burned. The original kingdom of Hawaii, the entire thing burned, and black smoke in the sky all night and all that. And the next day, I woke up, and all the news was conspiracy theories and Chinese laser beams and aliens and UFO, all these things. And I thought to myself, this is fire, this is air, this is climate change that has caused winds so strong from a hurricane 600 miles away that the current infrastructure could not hold it. Lahaina used to be the kind of Venice of Hawaii. It was a very water, inland lakes and all of that. That water got diverted 100 years ago because of sugarcane, and so it was dry as a bone. And the last vestiges of aloha, in some way, were behind glass in the museums there. And I think the mother said, it's time to unleash this, and it's time to a do-over. When you think of fire it transmutes, it changes things, changes form, and it was like a real do-over, and actually that moved the needle on indigenous rights, that fire. So it did have those sort of implications as well. And so I had this thought, and then I found out a couple days later, because of my empathic attunement with this culture, that the Hawaiian elders were thinking much the same thing. And that's not because I'm so special. That's just because I'm tuned to it. So I'm not selling cultural appropriation. I'm selling empathy of a culture that knows something that we don't.
Exactly. Yeah, the whole idea of cultural appropriation is just a shame, because now people are afraid to enter into cultural mindsets, because you can learn so much, as you have explained, almost mimicking. It's like a state. It's like a state of mind that you can enter, like a flavor of food, and you need to enter into that mindset. And so the idea that you're culturally appropriating when you do that pushes people away from opening up to these different cultures.
And there's these amazing young anthropologists that I'm reading right now. Anthropologists. I'm a super spiritual guy,
right.
But and anthropology is about studying a culture. But traditionally, it's taking my Western mind and my Western scientific mechanistic model of what the world is, studying the culture, and then reporting back to those Westerners what that culture believes. Mm-hmm. But there's this new anthropology that is about, I'm going to go to that culture and I'm going to get inside of it. And I'm going to experience their rituals, I'm going to experience their ceremonies, and I'm going to actually see the world through their eyes. And then what's happening with these anthropologists is they're going, I don't want to leave. I don't want to report on that. I actually don't want to leave. That's actually a better way of being, And I think that's in some way what Joanna Macy was getting at in some way. That that there's something inside that is where we find home again, where we find that we are in direct conversation and relationship with the natural world. I don't think, I'm not going to do any Christian bashing, but I don't think Genesis chapter 1 did us many favors when it said dominion. the earth, subdue the earth, for you humans gain. And so in that moment, and eco-critics talk about that is one of the most consequential things that was ever written about what would happen ecologically. Because what we did in that moment is we said, we are separate from nature, which is absurd. We are beings of nature. And nature is a dead thing, is a storehouse of resources only for us. And so we have claimed our peak role in the ecosystem, and separated ourselves from the ecosystem, and the ecosystem is suffering because of it, because we don't think of it as an extension of ourselves. You know, there's a famous quote from, I'm paraphrasing, but Joanna Macy talks about that an amputee kind of feels the pain or still feels the tinges of the severed limb, and that when we feel the whales being killed, when we see the homeless person starving, when we, you know, that on some level, from this animistic perspective, from this indigenous perspective, that is a part of our body. That is an extension of our own body. And all indigenous cultures, 99% of all our ancestors, of all Homo sapiens, saw the world like that.
Yeah.
It's only been weird where we are the master identity of, you know, it started about 10,000 years ago, but then really amped up, you know, a couple thousand years ago. And that separation has informed all the separation politically between each other, between certainly us and the natural world, but us with people that we don't understand, with people that we don't, you know. And so we bought this Kool-Aid, drunk this Kool-Aid about the separation, and we're a part of the whole thing. We are part of the ecosystem, and if we could start to think in that way, that's our way home.
It's like a circle. Right now, I believe that we're moving into a higher level of consciousness, and this higher level of consciousness makes us empathic. When we see something terrible happening to someone, the visceral reaction worldwide, community-wide, is different than what it was when 30 years ago. When you see something terrible happening to an animal or person or the world, the reactions that you see are much more magnified. And my strong belief is that it's because of the awareness of the oneness of all. It's just we're tuning into this higher level of consciousness that the entire planet is going through. And it's like a circle, because that's where we were at before. It's like those indigenous cultures that many of us look down upon were actually in a higher level of consciousness. They might not have had the technology, which is not really that important, but they were tuned into this oneness, which is really a fundamental part of the next evolution of consciousness. And for some people, they don't want to acknowledge it. And some people if they're going through it, and so they push it away. But it's undeniable. It's undeniable. And so I see that happening with the world. It's interesting when we go back and look at these systems that